Welcome to the Jimmy Daytona Show. Tonight, I have one of my mentors, Colleen Gallagher, who I've worked with over the past year. She does a lot of business coaching and new age healing, and has a lot of concepts that have resonated with me and quite a few others over the years. She's also a cancer survivor who has written 3 books and is working on her Ph.D. at Pepperdine as well, and coming up with all sorts of new concepts, about how to make our world a better place. Colleen, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. I'm super excited to be here, and thank you for creating such a platform and space for us to have dialogue and others to learn from.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I remember I think what led you to this journey is getting thyroid cancer at age 14. Must have been, I have no concept of what it's like. I mean, what was it like going through all that, and how did it help you become the person you've become today?
Yeah. So, I always, when I was a little girl, I would see other realms, or I don't know, I would kind of ask my friends, or do you see that? Or do you see this? And none of the little kids would be seeing what I was seeing. And so, I kind of got made fun of really, really young. And then I stopped kind of speaking about how I perceived the world, because obviously it was I was getting made fun of, or bad things were happening when I did that. And so that really manifested in thyroid cancer at a young age. And luckily I was able to come to an understanding of biology and emotional healing. And I was able to understand that the throat, which is where your thyroid is, it happened because I wasn't speaking my truth, because I wasn't expressing the way I perceive reality. And that, I guess, I really suffered for 9 years, really from 14 to 23. 9 years, it took me to really awaken to uh, being okay to be myself, being okay to have the desires that I wanted to have and the way that I wanted to live, instead of feeling guilty or shameful, or thinking that I had to fit into some, I guess, structure or some way of existing that didn't feel right for me. And so at 23, I basically quit my job. It was working for a $23 billion company. I covered a multi-million-dollar sales territory, and I moved across the world to New Zealand. And that's when I really began to understand about meditation and the subconscious mind, and aliens, activations, the cosmos. And I got really, really passionate about who is it that we can become in this life, and really supporting people in that process through my business. And so that's kind of how it started in a very generic way, but it was, definitely been a long journey.
Yeah, I mean, quitting a pretty good job at age 23 to go across to New Zealand, I guess if you took a poll, most people would think you're certifiably nuts.
Yeah.
And yet it was probably one of the best decisions you ever made. Did it come like one fine morning, or was it a gradual process?
Yeah, so I basically closed my largest sales deal at the time. It was 700,000, I think it was. And I came home and I crashed on my blue couch. It was this blue couch with um, I guess, bubbles or nimbles. And I was just crying, and I was like, God, source, universe, something has to change. Something has to be different. There has to be something more to this life, basically. And then from that, I became available, and this idea came to me to go grab my laptop and Google visas, because this whole time I'd traveled over the world, but I'd done a bunch of study abroads, but I thought that to live internationally, because America makes it seem like it's so hard, you could only do it through a company, if a company sent you international, or if you went to a school, for your master's or something like this. And so I Googled visas and saw it was $20 for a 1-year visa in New Zealand. And I was just so shocked that I'd never thought of this. And I was like, oh my God. And I basically looked a day on the calendar. I think it was March 17th or something. And I circled it, and then basically reverse engineer my life. I started saving money it was in December that day happened. I started saving money. I started having the day when I was going to book my flight. I started moving and all these things to make sure that this would happen for me. And yeah, I had so much anxiety daily, oh my God, am I throwing my life away? Is everything being ruined for me? Whatever that it was. Yeah, I had this, I don't know, this huge thing, I guess, in a way. And I would call and ask all my friends. My friends were like, you're nuts. You should definitely have a job before you go over there. And my friends were all judging me. And even on the plane over to New Zealand, I had a bottle of wine. I drank the whole bottle of wine to calm my mind so that I could not have so much anxiety. And it was funny because once I did this, almost every friend that told me not to do it, they quit their job within a month. And so it was just so funny because I feel like in so many ways I led myself and my friend group to kind of their liberated state and their place of really finding what they want to be in the world. And so, yeah, it was definitely, that was the worst excruciating 3 months in my life and that anxiety. But now that I did that, I make big risks like that a lot more. And the emotional stimulation isn't so heavy or isn't so hard.
Yeah. What would your advice be to somebody who's a lot more risk averse than that?
Yeah, it's funny because I think I've heard people say this, and Mark Zuckerberg actually just said this, which I think is powerful. He said the biggest thing you could be, the biggest risk you could be taking right now, like the biggest downfall you could be doing is to not be taking risk, because things are changing so fast with technology and the space revolution and how the world is connecting. And so like your biggest risk is to not take risk at all. And I think for me, I had that moment in my life where I was like, do I really want to wait till I'm 28, and I'm 28 now, where I'm working at this corporate job? Maybe I'll be a manager. Sure, I'll be making, I mean, at that I would have been making like well over 6 figures. I mean, like 130,000 plus salary, plus a company car, plus I would have traveled everywhere in the US. Like, did I want to do that for something I didn't like? And plus that's not even sales bonuses I would have gotten, which is anywhere up to 50 to 60,000, and I think about that. And I mean, especially what my company is made now, like I well exceed what I would make even in like a good year in a corporate job. And so I don't know. I think there just has to be something inside of you, like tap into the fear of like, if you die, like if you die tomorrow and you had no plan to like go for your dreams to make it happen, like, could you live with yourself? And that fear, I guess I cultivated that fear so deeply in me that I knew I wanted to travel the world. I knew I had to do this. It's like, I couldn't have lived with myself if I didn't do this. Like in that narrative, I made it so present in my mind that if I die and I don't do this, oh my God, can I live? And that fear, right? That thing that made the risk, like it had to happen no matter what, because I was not going to be available, that if I got sick or if cancer came back or if anything, that I didn't go for it. And so wherever you're at, you've got to tune into that place of like, okay, so if I die, right, and tomorrow, would I be okay just working at this job? Would I be okay of really never going all in on myself, like betting all in on myself, believing in myself? Like, would I be okay with that? And you have to just go from that place. Like you have to go, I think. And that's what made that 3 months of anxiety, I guess, manageable, because I kept tuning back to like, but I'm not going to die and not say I went for this. And that was what it was really, because fear is, I do believe, the most powerful force on the planet. It's what inspires you to act. It's what gets you to go places. And love is what transforms, but fear is what will always create the action.
Wow. What was your time in New Zealand like, and what activities and experiences did you like best?
Yeah, so I lived there for 8 months. And I worked for a $400 million company there, which was amazing. And I loved that. I was doing yoga 4 hours, yoga meditation 4 hours a day, which really transformed my life. And I started, like I said, to have these subconscious memories that would boil up over me. And that's what led to the inspiration of my first book, which was Live Your Truth. Yay! Which came out January 4th in my publisher. And it's what led to the inspiration of my company, Colleen Gallagher International. So I got to travel all over New Zealand. I went all over, I went to Melbourne and Sydney in Australia. I got to go to Fiji. I mean, there's just so much that I did. I really started this mindset of like, if I could do this here and I manifested a job that let me travel, why can't I do it on my own? And that's really what New Zealand represented for me. Like New Zealand represented a cultivation of inner confidence, of inner knowing, of inner trust, of inner, like, I'm just going to go for it. And that's what I'd say New Zealand represented, but it's such a beautiful country and I'm just so grateful for it.
Yeah, your Live Your Truth book, has 4 comments that were almost you were reliving them when you wrote this book.
Yeah.
And about how they led you to to reevaluate things and to press forward. What were those comments like, and how scarring were they, literally and figuratively?
Yeah. So, I mean, for the 4 comments, and definitely get the book, go on Amazon, or you can go to my website. But I think that what happened with those comments, right, is that like all of us, things happen in our life and it becomes part of us. Like it's integrated into who we are. And from that space, right, we don't realize how much we're operating on a default of who we don't want to be or what's not true. Like we're operating on this baseline to the world of past experiences, of past memories, of past, I don't know, how things should be, ought to be, all these different things. And until you actually like allow these memories, these things to come up to the surface, which I think is the journey of enlightenment, it's the journey towards fulfillment, it's the journey towards sustainability. Like until you make that space so that you're constantly letting go and releasing of things that aren't serving you, you're always operating out of this default manufactured version of you that's never going to quite get you to your dreams. And I think that's the power of those 4 comments, because I didn't realize I was carrying comments from other people, other people's belief systems into myself and harnessing that energy out into the world without knowing if that's even who I want to be or how I want to like, or if that's the life I want to create. And I think that's why this book is so powerful. And yeah, the comments had a massive impact. I remember I wrote them and I was like, told my flatmate, I was like, oh my God, no wonder I sounded like I seem like a screwed up girl, because I was like literally harnessing these things and then treating men certain ways or treating women certain ways and operating out of this belief that the world was bad, or I don't know, that people were never going to get it, or all these things, or like the government was going to come kill me for my ideas. Like I had all these crazy narratives. And I think until you cultivate that space so they come up, you're always operating out of a suffering way, and I guess in a way. And I think that's why the work that I teach is so important, because it becomes constant, where you're allowing memories from the past to come into your conscious mind, that you can see, is this really a memory I want to hold on to? Is this really something I want to be with? Is this something that I want to act from? Or do I want to create a new belief system? I want to create a new way of being, a new way of thinking. Yeah.
I know the book mentions becoming an intoxicator. And that's a different type of intoxicator than what most people think of that as being.
Yeah.
What was that concept like in terms of creating that for yourself?
Yeah. So it just came to me like intoxicate the world with love. And I loved it because I felt like intoxicator was a perfect alchemy. And I define the word as someone who looks within to remove the toxic, which is why the toxic is there, to become their truth, which is the tour. So it's like who you're becoming. So I really defined it in a new way. And I just kind of came to me. I didn't really do anything.
Yeah, you've taught a lot of online classes over the years, in terms of either monetization or love life, or how to tamp down your anxiety, and much more. And you've also done some mentoring of people. What's that whole experience been like for you, and what concepts are you focusing on these days most?
Yeah. So well, I always wanted it to be around a lifestyle you love, right? Everything I teach or every course I've done is always around tuning you back into love, or aligning you back into creating a lifestyle you love, whether that's relationships, money, holistically, writing, I mean, creative process. We have like a 28-day accelerator that's gonna be everything. We have a healer inner circle. We have meditation. Like I have so many ways that I support people. And I think I think I'm always focused on whatever I'm going through in the present, because whatever I'm going through in the present, I'm always wanting to utilize my life as an example to share it and teach it so that other people can go through what I've gone through. Because I think so often in life, when we go through hard times or even good things, we think we're the only one, like we can't, no one else could possibly understand. And that was like my deepest fears. I never want anyone to feel alone. And that's why I believe in love, because love does transform. And so through that, I utilize, or I've created a belief that my life is this kind of fairy tale of a life, I guess, that, is existing. And everything I go through is something that I can utilize to monetize, to impact, to share. So I think my focus, it's always what I'm going through in the present. So it's not like there's like these exact things. It's whatever the universe has planned for me to go through. And then from that place, I create offerings or solutions to it. But it's the focus will always be creating a lifestyle you love, because that's my message.
Yeah, I know that some people who are into spiritual and new agey concepts, they look at making money just it's almost like either beneath them or cashing in on their spirituality. But you've been very vocal about making sure that you can monetize your passions monetize your interests and monetize your life. How have you integrated the spiritual with the material?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I mean, I think business is one of the most spiritual things you can ever do, right? All a business is a business is solving people's problems, right? And a business at the same time is creating a customer base, a community of people that all want to have the same problem solved, whether that's hair growth, whether it's nails, whether it's health, whether it's wealth, like, I don't know. And I think that, any business, it's a product, service, or membership at a very basic level. And each of those is an offering. You've created something that's an offering, and the creation is from an idea that you've had, which was given to you by, I believe, something higher than you. So it's like you literally just become this channel of allowing something to flow through you, and you're offering, just like in any religion, you're creating an offering to solve people's problems. So it's so hard to even think that they're so separate, because to me, there's so much in union.
Yet I also noticed in our discussions the last couple of days that if you chase money too much, it ends up repelling money. I mean, how do you find a sweet spot, where you can earn and monetize your passions, but not, repel money by just being too desperate and too thirsty for it?
Yeah, well, everything is an energy, right? Like, and you have to think of your relationship with money as just like a relationship you have with anyone, your friends, a spouse, your parents, right? And if you were to chase, like constantly be chasing or needing your partner, it would feel exhausted, right? Your partner would eventually like find out things to not be around you, because they would feel this need that their energy is always being needed and pulled from you. And so, what I wrote about my specific post that I was sharing is that many people think of the word addiction. They think of like drugs or alcohol or whatever it is, but it is a truth that people can be addicted to money, thinking that if they have money, it's going to solve their problems. Or if they have money, then this is whatever. That's an addiction, right? An addiction is, if I have this, then this will be solved. I need this in order to. That is addictive language, right? And so if you are in this space of addiction to money, where you're like, if I need money, I get money. If you're in that space, you're never going to really allow it to drop in. Just like a relationship wouldn't really drop in if you felt like it constantly needed it. And with money, what I was sharing is that the universe, God, source, if that's how you are, right, the universe isn't going to give you things because you still haven't healed your addiction, and the universe is not going to enable you. So like example, you're saying you want a big life, you want to travel the world, but you suffer with alcoholism or maybe drug addiction, the universe might not let you travel, because what if you were to travel and you are using drugs when you're traveling, then you get caught in international and you're in jail. So the universe is like watching out for you to not give you the drug because you haven't yet healed it. And it wants you to live the life you want, but it's not going to do it at the cost where it gets way worse for you. Like an example I can put. So when I made a really bad business investment in my 2019 year of business, I went $100,000 in debt and I got out of it the same year. And when I had that, the bank closed my credit cards. Like they just closed it. And I was like, oh my God, like the moment that happened, I was like, I'm so grateful they did that. So that way I will never have to go in bankruptcy. Like I was like, the universe literally loves me so much that the bank closed my cards. So I no longer will invest in these things that it was bad for me. So I don't have to file bankruptcy possibly. And I started to look at my life this way, like not in a bad way, but it was like, of course. And then I started healing more with my money relationship. And so I think the balance, right? When you are doing something you love, like for me, right? Like I don't really have to think about where money is coming from. It just shows up. Like, I don't know. Like, I think if you're focused on money, right? No billionaire ever has been like, I focus on the money, right? It's more like you focus on the product, the service. What solution did you want to offer? What service did you want to create? How did you want to connect with people, make memories? And from that space, money just naturally flows. It has to. Money is not the thing that you're offering, right? Like even if you're in finance, money is not the thing you're offering. You're offering security. You're offering planning. You're offering you're offering like having longevity so you can enjoy your life when you're later. That's the point of that. And that's still not even money, and it's a money industry. So I think the moment you begin to focus on money, you've already lost. Like the moment you begin to think like, when do I get to go drink, or when do I get to go party, instead of like, okay, what's the experience that I want to go do? Like last night I went to this wine event and I loved it. And I'm super excited. I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm super excited to have all the champagne and I was more excited generally about the event and the connection. And of course I had a few champagnes or whatever it was, but that wasn't the focus. I didn't go for that. It was the whole experience of it. And that should be how you look at business, your life, and you're just in the belief system I operate, like how you should function.
Yeah, you also have a top 1,000 podcast that you've had 80 plus episodes on. How did that podcast come to be? How did you get started? Who have been some of your most notable guests? And where do you were you thinking of taking the podcast going forward? And what recommendations do you have for new podcasters like yours truly?
Yeah. So I think, well, one, my community was like, Colleen, start a podcast, start a podcast. And I was actually going on dates a lot. And these guys would be like, you need to start a podcast. So finally I actually created a podcast and I called it A Man's Best Friend. That was the initial name because all these guys were like telling me I need to start one. And so it was really funny. That's how we started it. And honestly, like I just made a commitment that I was going to show up once a week for the first 52 weeks. And then I took like a little bit of a break where I was just doing episodes randomly. And then now I'm in another one where I'm doing an episode a week for 52 weeks. And we have it like where we have like every episode is like SEO'd or whatever that it is. So that like helped us, I think, with ranking. We also had video we've added. We've had great graphics that we've added. We've like had guests. We're really inclusive. We post everywhere on social media. It's something that I talk about a lot. I have a lot of different topics. So I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of things, but I think again, like anything you do in life, if you want to do something, like do it with your heart, do it with everything you want. And if you do that, like the results are always going to come. It's naturally going to be there. And I think some of the best guests that we've had, I mean, one was Yvonne de la Flor. She's incredible. Another is Katrina Roof. She's done over 20 million cash in online sales. We've had David Meltzer. And we also had a woman who's done 70 different films, and Abigail Child. She's amazing. And that was an incredible episode. So those are probably some of my highlights. But I mean, every single one is unique and special in its own way. We just had an amazing interior designer, Carlos, on it. He's, I mean, phenomenal, globally recognized. And he was really a beautiful creative to have that's also very successful in business. So I don't know, it's a very dynamic podcast, and it was just a way of expression and connection. And I think when you come with that place, no matter what you do, you're always going to win.
Where do you come across some of these cool folks?
Just life. I mean, I don't know. I think every opportunity you have, right, to go somewhere, every time you're anywhere, right, you have an opportunity to connect. So if you're in the Uber, like last night I was in the Uber on the way to my event. Oh my God, incredible man. Was as an artist and also has a book and just really amazing. And I loved it. And so that was one. And we connected on Instagram. I connected with a few women. I mean, everywhere. I mean, my Airbnb, I connected with them that I'm staying in while I'm in between my places that I'm living right now. Like everything, I think everything's an opportunity to connect. It doesn't have to be like you need to go somewhere. Like, what is it you already do in your natural life that you can connect? Like, on social media, I will take time some days and I'll just sit there and I'll go through my feed and comment on random things or, you know, whatever that it is, and really connect and really pay attention. Like it's always available. It's not like you have to go and do anything special. It's just making an effort to want to know people and want to hear them and be present with them.
Yeah, I know you're definitely heavily involved in academia. I know you have a bachelor's and master's, and you're working on a PhD right now. I mean, what called you to get a PhD on top of everything else you're already doing, and what are you doing your dissertation on?
Yeah, so my PhD, right, came to me when I was in my first year of my business in 2018. I was staying at my friend's parents' house, and they were like, I feel like for what you want, your goals are, you should think about your PhD. And then I was in Hawaii and I was staying with a friend of mine who's getting his PhD. And he was like, you're a researcher. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Screw that. Like, I'm making so much money. Why would I go back and get that? And then I just looked the next day. I was like, let me look at this, because this technology piece I'm really good at. And I think there is a greater application than just entrepreneurship. And so that's when I went back and got my master's to understand global technology and development of the world. And then my PhD in psychology focused on global leadership and change. That's kind of just how that started. Like, again, I was having conversation. I was naturally sharing where I wanted to go, my goals in life, where I want to be. And someone put the idea in my head and I grabbed what they've said and I went and took action on it. And my dissertation is going to be on how do we really create a framework so that companies or people can create a customer virtual experience that's going to grow their sales, build brand equity, and also community.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I know you have two other books out. One on the education of Rohingyas and the Muslim refugees in Burma who are getting sent over to Bangladesh. What was working with them like in terms of bettering their education?
Well, I didn't necessarily work with them. The guy who was my professor and he was the advisor over my thesis, he worked with them and I got to really understand a lot of what was going on. And that's how I created my framework of how to create a technology-based education system to really support refugees. So who would need to be, if we were to do this framework, like who are the people that need to be brought in, what investors, what are the materials, what's the curriculum, what countries need to be involved. Like I really put a really well comprehensive framework together so that that could be implemented. I really transitioned out of the refugee space back into the virtual sales space because I felt like there were too many blocks with too many governments when you go into trying to work with refugees or when you're trying to work with global systems, where if you have a business and someone has ownership over that business, you're really able to get funds and you're able to create systems at a lot more rapid rate without so many politics involved. So that's why I really transitioned out of that, I guess, back into my PhD with what I'm doing now. My focus is.
Yeah. What was the experience of writing your third book, The Uncompromised Life?
Yeah, that's such an emotional book. We're doing the audio book. I finish it tomorrow actually at the studio, which is super exciting. But that was such an emotional book because it was someone I was in a relationship with that I really loved or, cared about. And it was a cosmic relationship. It's been many lifetimes. And I didn't know I could get pregnant based on my cancer diagnosis. I got pregnant, I had an abortion, and I, lied about it to this person and still said it was a miscarriage. And then I finally got out of the relationship because it was unhealthy really for both of us, just based on the qualities that we each possess and carry. And, I birthed a very beautiful being, Ella, from the book, which is the story of the fetus that was in my stomach for 5 weeks. And I talk about that there. And it's been amazing because it's given a lot of support to men and women who have experienced child loss or just loss of a, important relationship that was important or that they really cared about. So it was one of my favorite books that I've written. And yeah, I'm excited for my fourth book, which I'm writing now, which is called Expanded Liberation.
Oh, wow. What's Expanded Liberation going to be about?
About getting into an expanded, liberated state.
Oh, wow. Can't wait to read that too. I know you've started writing some poetry as well.
Yeah, I have a poetry book coming out later this year too.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful. What are some of the other things in the hopper for the next year or so?
I guess you guys will have to follow me on social media and find out.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, where can we follow you on social media and as well as on, in terms of listening to your podcast?
Yeah, so you can find me on the Colleen Gallagher on Instagram or Facebook. That's usually the best place to find me. And from that, just reach out, just message me, or you can go to my website, colleengallagher.co.
That's wonderful, Colleen. It's been great to work with you the past year. And thank you so much for coming on the Jimmy Daytona Show. I really appreciate it. And thanks for helping me get to the start line and make it a reality.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super grateful and hopefully see you at PodFest in Orlando.
Yes, very much so. Thanks for the invite. Mm-hmm. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, you too.